Picture this. It's a Sunday morning. You're standing at your kitchen window with a cup of coffee, still warm. You spent 3 hours yesterday power washing your patio, arranging your garden furniture, and hanging a brand new bird feeder from the shepherd's hook you specifically drove to the garden center to buy. You filled it with the premium mix, the one with the sunflower hearts and the dried berries, and the little picture of 12 different bird species on the bag. You even looked up where to position it. South-facing, you read. Near, but not too near a tree. At the right height. You did everything right. And right now, from where you're standing, you can see nothing. The feeder is untouched. The garden is silent. The only movement in your yard is a crisp packet blowing across the lawn. But from somewhere 2 streets over, you can hear it. A cascade of birdsong so rich, it sounds like something you'd pay to listen to on a wellness app. Wrens, thrushes, something you can't even name. Here is the thing nobody tells you when you spend $40 on a feeder and $20 on premium seed. Birds don't want a feeder. Birds want a world. And until your backyard looks less like a patio showroom and more like a living, breathing ecosystem, they are going to keep flying straight over it. That ends today. Welcome to Pure Homestead. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now, because what you're about to hear will permanently change the way you see the space outside your back door. And stay with me until upgrade number 10, because it is the single cheapest thing any homeowner can do tonight, and it saves more birds than every other item on this list combined. The difference between a backyard bird's avoid and a backyard bird's fight to live in is not a better feeder. It's not a more expensive seed mix. It's not even a bigger garden. It's design. A yard that attracts birds doesn't look like a catalog. It looks like a habitat. It has layers, structure, food webs, shelter, and water. It has complexity. It has life. And the beautiful part? You don't need acres of land. You don't need to spend a fortune. You need 10 specific upgrades grounded in real ecological science that rebuild your yard from the ground up. This is not opinion. This is not lifestyle content. Every single upgrade I'm about to give you is backed by peer-reviewed research from some of the most respected ornithologists and ecologists working today. Let's build your 5-star resort. Upgrade number 1. Stop treating your lawn like a carpet and start treating it like a canvas. I know, you love your lawn. So do I. But here's what a bird sees when it flies over a perfectly mowed, perfectly green, perfectly uniform lawn. A food desert. Dr. Doug Tallamy, entomologist at the University of Delaware, has spent decades documenting the relationship between plants and the insects that feed on them. His conclusion is devastating in its simplicity. 96% of all terrestrial bird species in North America depend on insects, specifically caterpillars, to feed their chicks during nesting season. Not seeds, not berries, caterpillars. A single pair of Carolina wrens raising one brood needs thousands of caterpillars just to get their chicks to fledging age. And caterpillars cannot survive on a lawn of non-native grass. There is nothing there for them to eat. No host plants, no food web, just grass. Every square foot of lawn you replace with native wildflowers, native grasses, or native shrubs is a square foot that just transformed from a biological zero into a living pantry. You don't have to tear up everything. Start with a strip along the fence. Let a corner go. Plant one patch of native coneflowers or black-eyed Susans and watch what happens within a single season. Because in a neighborhood full of ecological parking lots, even a small patch of real habitat is a 5-star restaurant to a bird that hasn't eaten since dawn. Upgrade number 2. The tree in your backyard might be the most expensive thing you own that does absolutely nothing for birds. Here is the plot twist nobody at the garden center will tell you. That beautiful ornamental cherry tree, that flowering crabapple, that Japanese maple you paid $400 for. In ecological terms, from a bird's perspective, it barely exists. Beautiful non-native trees support almost no insect life because the insects in your local ecosystem did not evolve to eat them. No insect life means no caterpillars. No caterpillars means no food for nesting birds. And no food for nesting birds means your yard stays silent. A 2018 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by researchers Narango, Tallamy, and Mara studied Carolina chickadee populations across suburban Washington, D.C. They found something remarkable. For a chickadee population to sustain itself, to produce enough chicks each year to replace the adults that die, the surrounding landscape needs to be at least 70% native plant biomass. Below that threshold, breeding fails. Not slows, fails. The chicks don't get enough food, they don't survive. The population collapses quietly, one silent spring at a time. The single most powerful tree you can plant is a native oak. Tallamy's data shows that a single native oak supports over 500 species of caterpillars, more than any other plant genus on the continent. One oak tree is not just a tree. It's an entire food web with branches. Plant one, just one, and you will have done more for the birds in your neighborhood than every premium feeder on the block combined. Upgrade number 3. Your bird bath is invisible. Here's how to fix it for less than the price of a coffee. Still water is one of the most overlooked problems in backyard birding. A shallow dish of standing water sitting on a pedestal is acoustically silent and visually static. A bird moving at speed through the canopy cannot detect it. It blends into the ground. As far as a passing warbler or thrush is concerned, it does not exist. Now add one small thing: a solar-powered dripper. A recirculating pump no bigger than your fist. Anything that creates movement and sound. Everything changes. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology has documented that the sound of dripping or trickling water is one of the most powerful bird attractants that exists. It creates an auditory signal that carries through dense foliage for hundreds of feet. It catches light. It flickers. It signals safety, freshness, and life. And here's the part that will genuinely surprise you. Moving water attracts species that will never visit a feeder. Warblers, veeries, hermit thrushes, vireos, birds that eat only insects and have zero interest in your sunflower seeds, will cross an entire neighborhood to bathe in moving water. A $5 solar dripper attached to the edge of your existing bird bath will bring you more species diversity than a $100 feeder. That's not marketing, that's ornithology. Upgrade number 4. One feeder is not a feeding station. It's a vending machine, and most birds don't use vending machines. Data from Cornell Lab's Project Feeder Watch, one of the largest citizen science datasets on backyard bird behavior ever assembled, is unambiguous. Different species have non-negotiable feeding preferences that a single tube feeder with mixed seed cannot serve. Cardinals and chickadees want black oil sunflower seed in a hopper feeder. Woodpeckers and nuthatches want suet in a cage feeder. Goldfinches and siskins want Niger seed in a dedicated finch feeder. Bluebirds want mealworms in an open tray, and nothing else. A single mixed seed feeder tries to serve everyone and succeeds for almost no one. Here is the system that actually works. Anchor your station with a hopper feeder loaded with black oil sunflower. Within 10 feet, hang a suet cage. On the opposite side, a finch feeder with Niger. On the ground nearby, or on a low open tray, mealworms for bluebirds and robins. Now here's the detail that most people miss. Place the whole cluster 10 to 15 feet from the nearest shrub or tree, far enough that a cat or predator can't launch from cover, close enough that every bird at the feeder has a 3-second flight path to safety. Birds do not eat where they don't feel safe. The geometry of your feeder station is not decoration. It is survival math, and it needs to work in the bird's favor. Upgrade number 5. I need you to build the ugliest thing in your yard. On purpose. With pride. A brush pile. I know exactly what you're thinking. You just spent a weekend making your garden look presentable. You do not want a pile of dead sticks in the corner. But here is what that pile of dead sticks actually is. A 5-star winter hotel for every sparrow, junco, wren, and towhee in your neighborhood. When temperatures drop and storms roll in, small songbirds face a survival crisis that most people don't think about. They need to find shelter that blocks wind, traps body heat, and is inaccessible to predators. Fast. A well-built brush pile creates dozens of tiny, sheltered chambers inside its tangle of branches. Birds dive in, fluff their feathers, and conserve enough body heat to survive a night that would otherwise kill them. The U.S. Forest Service and multiple state wildlife agencies actively recommend maintaining at least one brush pile per residential yard for wildlife habitat. This isn't fringe advice, it's conservation policy. And here's the part I want you to sit with. That neighbor whose yard you've been judging all year, the one with the messy pile of branches behind the shed, there's a reason their yard sounds alive in January and yours sounds empty. It's not the feeder, it's the pile. Your spotless yard is the one with the problem. The mess is the habitat. And 4 feet wide by 3 feet tall in a back corner is all you need. Upgrade number 6. Your autumn garden cleanup is ecological destruction performed on an annual schedule. And I say that with full respect for how counterintuitive it sounds. Every fall, you rake the leaves. You cut back the dead flower stalks. You clear the garden beds to bare soil. You bag everything up and put it at the curb. And every time you do that, you are removing the winter food supply for dozens of bird species and destroying the insect nursery that your garden needs to come alive in spring. Dead flower heads from native plants, coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, goldenrod, hold seeds that birds eat throughout winter. A single dried coneflower head can hold over 200 seeds. Goldfinches and sparrows will work a single stem methodically for weeks. Cut it down in October, and those 200 meals vanish. Leaf litter is even more critical. That layer of fallen leaves protects overwintering moth pupae, beetle larvae, and other invertebrates, the exact organisms birds will excavate in early spring to feed their first broods. Rake your leaves to bare soil in autumn, and you've emptied your insect bank before the busiest withdrawal season of the year. Fewer insects in spring means fewer caterpillars. Fewer caterpillars means fewer chicks survive. Fewer surviving chicks means fewer adult birds the following year. Your cleanup isn't maintenance. It's a population suppressor that resets itself every 12 months. Leave the leaves. Leave the stalks. Leave the seed heads. Your garden will look wilder for 4 months. It will sound extraordinary for the 8 that follow. Upgrade number 7. A flat yard is a failed yard. If you've been keeping score, you may have noticed a pattern in every upgrade so far. More complexity, more structure, more layers of food, shelter, and opportunity. That is not coincidence. That is how ecosystems work. Forest ecologists use a concept called vertical stratification. The idea that the richness of a habitat is largely determined by how many distinct structural layers it contains. A yard with only lawn and one large tree has 2 layers, ground and canopy. That habitat can support, at best, 5 or 6 bird species. Now add a shrub layer between the lawn and the tree canopy. Native viburnums, native serviceberries, native elderberries. You just added nesting habitat for cardinals, catbirds, and thrashers. You added a foraging zone for warblers that would never visit the ground or the canopy. Add a ground cover layer beneath those shrubs. Native ferns, wild ginger, low sedges, and you've added a 4th layer. Now towhees scratch in the leaf litter. Ovenbirds work the ground. Wrens nest in the tangles. 4 layers, 4 distinct worlds, all created by choosing where to plant things, not just what to plant. You don't need a forest. You need a tree, a shrub planted beneath it, a low ground cover planted beneath that, and fallen leaves on the soil beneath everything. That 4 layers, and it costs nothing. Upgrade number 8. This is the one nobody wants to hear. The beautiful resort you're building has a death trap at the front door. And that death trap is your windows. A 2014 study by researchers at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute, Scott Loss, Peter Mara, and colleagues, estimated that building collisions kill between 365 million and nearly 1 billion birds every single year in the United States. The majority of those deaths do not happen at skyscrapers. They happen at homes like yours and mine. Birds cannot see glass. They see a reflection of the sky or a reflection of the habitat you've just carefully planted, and they fly into it at full speed. The very feeders and native plants you've installed to help birds are now creating a beautiful, deadly approach corridor straight into your window. You are inviting birds into your yard and then killing them with your architecture. The solution is simple and inexpensive. External window films with dense dot or streak patterns applied to the outside face of the glass. UV reflective decals spaced no more than 2 inches apart. Even simple tempera paint applied in a grid on the exterior of the glass. The critical word is exterior. Internal treatments do nothing because the reflective surface remains on the outer face. Alternatively, place feeders either within 3 feet of the window, where birds cannot build lethal speed if startled, or beyond 30 feet, where they have enough distance to perceive the glass and avoid it. You didn't spend all this time building a resort to let the building itself be the villain. Upgrade number 9. A nest box can save a species. A wrong nest box can doom one. The U.S. Forest Service estimates that more than 85 North American bird species are what ecologists call obligate cavity nesters, meaning they can only reproduce inside an enclosed cavity, a hollow in a tree trunk, a fence post, or a nest box. Bluebirds, chickadees, wrens, tree swallows, screech owls. As mature trees with natural cavities disappear from suburban landscapes, these species face a housing crisis. And a properly placed nest box is one of the most direct interventions any homeowner can make. But the specifications matter enormously. The entrance hole diameter is not arbitrary. A 1.5-inch hole admits chickadees and wrens. A 1 9/16 hole is specifically sized for eastern bluebirds. Get it wrong, and you're either excluding the species you want or opening the door to invasive house sparrows or starlings, which will kill native chicks. Never add a perch below the entrance hole. Native cavity nesters do not need one, and a perch gives predators and invasive sparrows a foothold. Mount the box on a smooth metal pole with a predator baffle underneath, not on a tree trunk where raccoons and snakes can climb directly to the entrance. The Cornell Lab's Nest Watch program provides free, species-specific plans with exact interior dimensions, ventilation requirements, and placement guidelines for every common cavity nester. Use them. A $5 pine box built to the right specs will produce more birds in your backyard than anything sold in a garden center. Clean the box out every autumn. Parasite loads accumulate and will kill next year's brood before it starts. 10 upgrades. Every single one backed by real ecological science. Every single one within reach of any homeowner with a yard, a patch, a garden, or even a balcony. And here's what I want you to understand before you go. You don't have to do all 10 today. Plant one native shrub. Add a dripper to your existing bird bath. Leave the leaf litter in one corner. Build one brush pile. Each change you make compounds. Each upgrade makes the next one more effective. Because birds don't assess your yard upgrade by upgrade. They assess it as a system. And a system with food, moving water, layers, shelter, and safe nesting sites is a system they will choose over every sterile, manicured, silent garden in the neighborhood. 3 billion birds have disappeared since 1970. That number is staggering. And it can feel overwhelming. Like one backyard can't possibly matter. But here's what the science actually shows. Birds don't move across continents in one flight. They move yard by yard, patch by patch, refuge by refuge. Each restored habitat is a stepping stone. Each 5-star resort is one more reason to keep going. Tell me in the comments, which upgrade are you starting with? And if you've already been building your backyard resort and the birds have already arrived, tell me about the morning you first heard them. That moment when you walked outside and the silence was gone, and you realized you'd actually done it. Those moments matter. Those yards matter. And so do the birds still out there looking for a place to land. I'll see you in the next one. And here we are, upgrade number 10. The one I promised you at the very beginning. The cheapest, easiest change any homeowner can make tonight, and the one that saves more birds than everything else on this list combined. Turn off your lights. In 2019, a landmark study published in the journal Science confirmed that North America has lost nearly 3 billion breeding birds since 1970. 3 billion. Not rare species, not birds on the edge of extinction, common birds. The sparrows and warblers and swallows you grew up with. Gone from the skies in a single human lifetime. One of the largest and least understood contributors to that loss is artificial light at night. Every spring and fall, billions of birds migrate across the continent in darkness, navigating by stars, Earth's magnetic field, and polarized light patterns in the night sky. When they encounter light pollution from cities, towns, and individual homes, their navigational systems are disrupted. They circle illuminated structures for hours, burning through the fat reserves they desperately need to complete journeys that stretch thousands of miles. The American Bird Conservancy has documented that a single lit high-rise building during peak migration can kill hundreds of birds in a single night. And it isn't only skyscrapers. It's your porch light, your garden spotlights, your decorative string lights glowing beautifully across the patio. Every light source visible from the sky during April, May, September, and October is a potential trap for a bird that has been flying through the dark for hours. Turning those lights off, or switching to motion-activated fixtures, or simply drawing your blinds during migration season costs you nothing. Not $1, not an hour of labor, not a single plant or tool or upgrade. And it may be the single most important thing you ever do for the birds that are trying right now to find their way.